Hello everyone. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of financial psychology, exploring timeless lessons on wealth, greed, and happiness. This presentation is based on Morgan Housel's insightful book, The Psychology of Money. The core idea is simple yet profound: doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. It's about understanding the human element behind our financial decisions. Let's start with a foundational premise: finance isn't just about math, it's fundamentally about human behavior. In the real world, people don't make financial decisions purely based on spreadsheets. They make them at the dinner table, in a meeting room, or while scrolling online, where personal history, ego, pride, marketing, and often odd incentives are all scrambled together. This leads to our core thesis: behavior is incredibly hard to teach, even to brilliant minds. A genius who loses control of their emotions can face financial disaster, while an ordinary person, perhaps without formal financial education, can achieve great wealth simply by mastering crucial behavioral skills. Next, let's consider a powerful concept: no one is crazy. This means that everyone's financial decisions make perfect sense to them, given their unique experiences. Your personal experiences with money, for example, make up a tiny fraction, maybe 0.000000001% of what has happened in the world. But critically, these experiences often account for about 80% of how you believe the world works. People from different generations, raised by different parents, earning different incomes, and born into different economic eras, inevitably learn very different lessons about money. Understanding this helps us empathize with, rather than judge, others' financial choices. Moving on to luck and risk, two concepts that are inseparable siblings. Let's look at the Bill Gates example. In 1968, he attended one of the only high schools in the world with a computer. This was a 1-in-a-million stroke of luck that provided him an invaluable head start. Contrast this with Kent Evans, Gates' close friend and equally brilliant prodigy, who tragically died in a mountaineering accident before graduation. This was a 1-in-a-million risk event. These examples highlight that outcomes are rarely purely due to individual skill or effort. The lesson here is to focus less on specific individuals and more on broad patterns, understanding that nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems, and that luck and risk play significant roles. Now, let's talk about the moving goalpost. This is perhaps the hardest financial skill to master: getting your goalpost to stop moving. The problem often stems from social comparison. The ceiling of social comparison is so high that virtually no one will ever hit it, constantly striving for more simply because others have it. This brings us to the Enough Manifesto. Enough isn't about having too little, it's about realizing that an insatiable appetite for more will often push you towards regret. There is simply no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. Knowing when you have enough is a powerful path to contentment. Next, we have confounding compounding. Everyone knows compounding is powerful, but few truly grasp its magnitude over long periods. Warren Buffett is a prime example. As you can see on the chart, a staggering $81.5 billion of his net worth came after his 65th birthday. While Buffett is undeniably a phenomenal investor, his true secret isn't just incredible returns, it's time, and the uninterrupted application of those returns over 3/4 of a century. The real lesson isn't about achieving the highest returns, it's about consistency and staying invested for an extended duration, allowing the magic of compounding to truly work. This brings us to the concept of tails: you win. The idea is that you can be wrong half the time, or even more, and still make a fortune. Think about Amazon's success. While they had failures like the Fire Phone, their immense growth is largely due to the success of Amazon Web Services and Prime. These tail events, the 1% of events that drive 99% of outcomes, more than offset the duds. Your ultimate success often depends not on the years you're on cruise control, but on how you behave during those punctuated moments of terror, when things seem to be going wrong. It's about surviving and capitalizing on the few big wins. Let's distinguish between getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. These require two very different mindsets. Getting money often requires taking risks, being optimistic, and putting yourself out there. It's about seizing opportunities. However, keeping money requires a different set of virtues: humility, a healthy dose of fear, and the constant realization that wealth can be taken away. The most successful investors often embody what we call a barbelled personality, optimistic about the future and what's possible, yet simultaneously paranoid about all the things that could prevent them from achieving their goals. It's a balance between ambition and caution. A crucial principle for financial endurance is room for error. This means planning on the plan, not going according to plan. It's about building in a margin of safety. As Benjamin Graham wisely said, the purpose of the margin of safety is to render the forecast unnecessary. The goal is to avoid single points of failure. If you are leveraged to the hilt, a small hiccup can wipe you out entirely. But if you have cash on the side, or other forms of buffer, you have the flexibility to endure unforeseen challenges. Ultimately, survival is the only thing that truly matters in the long game of finance. Let's reframe our perspective on market fluctuations. Volatility is a fee, not a fine. Think of a fine as something you get for doing something wrong, like a speeding ticket, and you try to avoid it. But market volatility is more like a fee, like paying for a ticket to Disneyland. You pay it to get something good, in this case, the long-term growth and returns of the market. The key insight here is if you view a 20% market drop as a necessary fee for long-term growth, you'll stick with your investments. But if you view it as a fine, a punishment to be avoided, you'll likely bail at the worst possible time. Embrace the fee and stay focused on the long-term reward. Now, let's consider the seduction of pessimism. Why does pessimism often sound so smart? It's because destruction happens quickly and demands immediate attention. Think of a financial crash or a major catastrophe. It's dramatic, captivating, and makes the pessimistic predictions seem prescient. In contrast, growth happens slowly, through compounding, and is often easy to ignore. Optimism, therefore, can sometimes sound oblivious. But real optimism isn't about blind faith, it's about believing that the odds of a good outcome are in your favor over time, even while acknowledging that there will be setbacks along the way. It's about the long game, not the immediate headline. This brings us to the man in the car paradox. It's a simple truth: no one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. When you see a luxurious Ferrari, for instance, your first thought typically isn't, "Wow, that driver is incredibly cool." More often, you think, "If I had that car, people would think I am cool." This highlights a fundamental misunderstanding of how status symbols work. Ultimately, humility, kindness, and empathy bring far more genuine respect and admiration than any amount of horsepower or material wealth ever could. Let's clarify the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Wealth is what you don't see. Being rich often involves visible displays, expensive cars, grand houses, designer clothes. These are things you spend money on. Wealth, however, is invisible. It's your savings, your investments, your options. It's the money you have not yet spent. Spending money to show people how much money you have is, ironically, the fastest way to have less money. True wealth is an option not yet taken to buy something later. It's the financial flexibility you've accumulated. The only way to truly be wealthy is to not spend the money that you do have. Finally, we discuss freedom. This is arguably the highest dividend money pays. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want, that is priceless. Control over your time is a far more dependable predictor of happiness than your salary or job prestige. So, what's the takeaway? Save. Just save. You are saving for a world where curveballs are common, and having cash or financial reserves gives you the flexibility and control to handle them on your own terms, protecting your freedom. To summarize, let's embrace these key principles. First, be reasonable, not rational. The best financial plan is the one you can actually stick to, even in difficult times. Second, play your own game. Don't take cues from people with different time horizons or circumstances. Third, define enough to stop that moving goalpost of endless desire. Fourth, value freedom above all. Control over your time is more valuable than material goods. And fifth, worship room for error. Survival is the only thing that truly matters in the long run. Ultimately, true success is about exiting the rat race to modulate one's activities for peace of mind, allowing you to live a life aligned with your values.